I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The more you talk, the harder I want to hit you.
I'm happy because of being here today. Fuck you.
Come on, you want me to drive? No, you're supposed to be suicidal, remember? I'll
Anybody
drive.
a drive?
Get in the car.
Fucking shit. Fuck me in the fucking ass. Fuck you, you fucking stupid cunt.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with the fourth entry of the review series we're doing, and that obviously is going to be for our 1985s, the one that got divisively received when it came out, but over time it's gotten cult status from people, and and the Creed films also got a more positive feedback. That's going to be for 1985's Rocky IV, which also is directed by Sylvester Stallone, much like 2 and 3 were. So, what's the plot of Rocky IV? Well, after defeating Clubber Lang and befriending Apollo Creed, Rocky Balboa accompanies Apollo Creed to the ring in a boxing match against a Russian boxer named Ivan Drago. Drago is too strong for Creed, and disturbingly kills him in his match. Balboa blames himself for Creed's death and is determined so he can defeat Drago in a boxing match. So he gains the help of Creed's former manager Duke and travels to the USSR to take on Drago and get payback for Creed's death. So as for my reaction, now, you remember when I started YouTube and did a Rocky and Creed ranking and how I originally gave us a 6.5 back then? Back when I had first started YouTube and when I didn't have too much knowledge about films back then? Well, ever since I've now revisited it, I've actually started to really reevaluate this movie. And you know what? I now love it. Honestly, I think I now really love this movie. In fact, come on guys, scores can change all the time. Scores always change. They always change. Anytime an opinion on a movie can change. Some week might like it and better, or some might start to like it less. It's my third favorite of the series. This was where the series was kind of starting to get mixed reactions from people, but over time, even some of those people have started to really reevaluate this movie too. And some even also consider this movie a personal favorite of the franchise. Right there. And another thing. Ever since Creed 1 and Creed 2 came out, they've caused this film to actually get more positive attention. Ever since, those films, regardless of, whether you do like or hate the Creed films, either way, one thing they at least did do is they actually got this movie more of an actually more positive fan base than what it used to have. After those films. Now after those films, people look a lot more fondly on this one. Compared to when it first came out. I mean, when it first came out, it was a huge moneymaker, but it was more divisively received. And before you ask me, are you going to watch that director's cut from the Rocky vs. Drago director's cut? No, I don't want to check out that cut. Everything about that cut looks lame. Honestly, I'll just stick with this version, the theatrical version instead. I'll stick with this version. The theatrical version, to me, is actually more fun than what I've read about the director's cut looks. But anyway, okay, let's get on with how the film was made. So how was it made? So development for a fourth began soon after Rocky III's success. Filming began in 1984, and filming locations were Philadelphia, Wyoming, and Vancouver. Rocky IV is Lundgren's American film debut, Dolph Lundgren's American film debut, and Stallone's last directional effort for a while until Rocky Balboa in 2006. They really engaged in authentic, punching in the fight scenes, and it led to Stallone being admitted to intensive care. Filming even featured new special effects and bona fide and groundbreaking sports methods and equipment, which years later were removed from public use. And Rocky IV is known for strong Cold War themes and successful themes including like Burning Heart by Survivor, Living in America by James Brown, which I like those songs. Some people are a little more divisive on those songs, but I actually really like them. And so, after the film was officially shot and completed, Rocky IV premiered in Los Angeles on November 21st, 1985, and was released in the United States by MGM and UA Entertainment on November 27th. And the film, when it came out, obviously initially received mixed reviews. They praised Dolph Lundgren's villain character, but they criticized the predictable screenplay. And some noted that Drago's ultimate defeat in the Soviet crowd's embrace of Rocky represented the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And some thought, the movie is propaganda for Cold War themes, a negative portrayal of Russians. Not exactly. I don't think it is. But regardless, Rocky IV ended up being the highest grossing Rocky film for a while, by making over $300 million worldwide. Actually, it is the highest grossing Rocky film. And it's the third highest grossing US film in 1985, the second highest grossing film worldwide. In this grossing film of 1985 worldwide, obviously. And, like I said, reviews were more favorable in the years later, especially like for the training montages, and the movie got considered an icon of 80s pop culture and has a cult following now. 2021 it got a director's cut that, once again, I'm going to say it again, I have no interest in checking out the director's cut, so don't ask me about the director's cut, because I'm not watching it. I don't plan on watching the director's cut, okay? I already have a version. It's the version I'm reviewing is the theatrical one. And a sequel to the film, which, oh yeah, that's going to be the next review. Released 5 years after this. But the storyline would continue in Creed 2. Alright, here are the good qualities in the story of Rocky IV. So, as you know, the film follows Rocky against another even more dangerous foe, Ivan Drago, who's this Russian USSR heavyweight who straight up murders Apollo Creed during an exhibition bout. So Rocky now must fight not only to avenge his best friend, but for the honor of his country. I found the film to be epic. And yeah, the film is moving and sad. Sure, it's kind of one of the more sillier entry of the series, but it's still got moving and sad moments, and it's still quite good. It moves along at a very fast pace, and it's a pretty great 91 minutes. It's like the shortest Rocky film, but that's alright. It's because this one's trying to get to the point and be a little more straightforward. Because we already had some very long last three, so let's be a little shorter with this one. The story is changed up compared to the last three films, where you kind of knew the formula of the last three films, where the main hero comes from the bottom, rises to the top. The story in Rocky IV actually does a different story. This time it's now a revenge story, where Rocky this time has to fight Ivan because he murdered Apollo, who once started off as rival and then turned into friend in Rocky III. You got some silly moments, like you got Apollo's entrance, especially where James Brown sings Live in America, and you got the robot bit, but honestly, the 80s had a lot of silly stuff. 80s movies had a lot of silly stuff, because back then, guess what? Movies actually were not afraid to be silly and have fun. Nowadays, every movie, we need to be so nihilistic, we need to be so serious, we need to be so edgy. We can't have fun anymore. That's not allowed. Seriously, remember back when movies were actually not afraid to be unrealistic and just acknowledge themselves as fictional movies? This was that era, and I like that. Besides, the last three were serious films, so I like this one decides to have a little more fun with itself, and actually and even at one point kind of does take a bit of satirical theme of popular trends in the 80s that were kind of dominating cinema back then. Right there. And the story and the characters are still good. The movie gets tied to the Cold War bit that was kind of happening around the time. Though, to be fair, it's not like what Disney does. It's more, how they handle it is, to me, more subtle. It's a proper way to have political references in movies. This is a much more subtle way of doing it. Unlike modern Disney, this at least does it much more subtle, and it doesn't hog up the whole movie. It's not the main point of the film. Whereas Stallone here does kind of critique American society of the 80s and a lot of its materialism, but it's a subtle, wonderful bit. And you still see bits like you see Rocky and his son spending time together, where he polishes his Lamborghinis while his son plays with his uncle's robots that I will mention a little bit. And then in the exhibition fight, Rocky and the whole core crew are wearing these boss sweatshirts. And by the final act, Rocky does kind of abandon the American culture to train in kind of the cold landscape of Russia because that's where his rival is. His rival's in Russia, so he has to fight him in Russia. Right there, and it actually does provide some more good montages. So how do we start off? So we first meet our antagonist, Ivan Drago, who I'm going to mention this. Ivan Drago, to me, is the best antagonist of this series. Dolph Lundgren makes him terrifying, makes him very evil. Like, every time this character was on screen, I always got chills because this was a fighter who meant business. This was a fighter that was actually this was a fighter who was never fucking around when he ever wanted to fight or stuff like that. This guy was really such a threat. A threat that meant serious business. He arrives in the United States from the Soviet Union with his wife Ludmila, his trainers and his manager Nikolai Koloff. Nikolai takes every opportunity to promote Drago's athleticism as a hallmark of Soviet superiority. And motivated by patriotism and a desire to step back in the ring, we see how like Rocky and Apollo Creed are having this kind of friendship right there, and throughout kind of like the first bit of the film, and the movie does start off with a recap of Rocky 3 and ending off with the rematch he had promised Apollo. And then it cuts to him coming home to his son, and they pretty much starts off really with celebrating Paul's birthday, and what Paul's birthday gift is a thing called Robot Pal, which is this robot that delivers Paul's birthday cake and even talks to him. Right there, and some people are like, this feels out of place for Rocky, and sure, maybe it does a little bit, but guess what? You know what? It doesn't ruin the movie for me, and you know what? I actually don't mind it. I actually kind of think it's, how I see it, it's kind of like, guys, because in cinema in the 80s, robots were becoming a popular thing. They were kind of like appearing in a lot of cinema nowadays. It's kind of meant to be a satirical take on how sci-fi was kind of being kind of started to be like militant, how people were invested in aliens and robots in cinema then, were huge successes, and that's the thing, like, Stallone's pal, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was kicking off success with The Terminator. The first Terminator film, which was about a robot. So in a way, like, it's kind of meant to be kind of a little jab at like robots being oversaturated in cinema. That was kind of the point of the scene. And apparently the director's cut, they need to take it out of the director's cut. Because we wanted a more serious version of it. This film was serious too. Lots of parts. I think that's what some people don't seem to look past the serious parts and seem to look more at the silly parts, and they're kind of when they criticize the film. Right there, but after a bit, then you get the bit of the washing cars, and pretty much then he finds out from a phone call from Apollo Creed that Ivan Drago that he wants to challenge Drago to an exhibition fight, and Rocky has reservations about this larger, more dangerous opponent, and about Creed coming out of retirement, but he agrees to help train Apollo for the match. The movie has still great soundtracks, and you got Training Montage and Hearts on Fire by Survivor, Justice Gray's Eye of the Tiger, and apparently this got nominated for a Razzie for music. Like, why? Why? The score was great. Why was so Razzie worthy about it? The film still has great memorable moments. Ivan Drago is remarkable. You have the iconic final fight. Yeah, you do feel Bill Conti's departure in the film's music. That could kind of raise the level, but the music is still very great and competent and still has some great striking themes. And Rocky has to basically change up the location. He has to go fight in Russia, where everybody hates him. But then during the fight, the crowd sees Rocky's deep determination and deep meaning, and then they cheer for him instead of Ivan Drago. Because Ivan Drago is basically fighting for nothing, while Rocky, on the other hand, is fighting for something a lot deeper. And that's what the crowd starts to really see. And Rocky puts everything he has into the fight, and that's why he comes out top and wins. And Rocky's closing speech is a good way to close the movie, where I'm here there were two guys kill each other. I guess it's better than 50 million. If I can change and you can change, everybody can change. That's a great way to close out the movie. That's another one of the best closing speeches of the films. Sly still wins us over with one of his best portrayals of Rocky Balboa. The mute Dolph Lundgren does more than kind of just go through the film, and actually, with a terrifying and also epic, great love to hate performance he gives of the character, provides the kind of opponent that we've always feared to fight in boxing. Like, Ivan Drago is really one of the best villains of the 80s. He's probably up there with Mal Ram from Temple of Doom, up there with Clarence Barker from RoboCop, up there with the T-800 from the first Terminator. He's up there with the bad guys from First Blood Part 2. Another Stallone flick that released the same year as this. And one thing I should mention, 1985 was the biggest year for Stallone. Rambo First Blood Part 2 was a huge $300 million moneymaker, and so was this. And almost a lot of his stuff in 1985 was his most successful yet back then. 1985 was what really launched him into the stardom, with the huge blockbusters he had made that year. Like, this is the thing. That's another thing. Drago's not just another rival boxer. Like, Clubber Lang was more of an arrogant boxer. This guy is one deadly guy that is injected with drugs and that can actually cause the boxer to actually kill their opponent. So the fact that Rocky's going against a guy that killed his friend and probably could kill him really adds more tension and more intrigue to the film. Like one of the things that really makes him the best bad guy is the guy doesn't really have a lot of dialogue. Like, the guy really feels like an actual killing machine. And you can tell this is a fighter who means serious business. Like, one of the things, Dolph Lundgren does great portraying him. And I thought he was perfect for the role. And the Box Expedition ironically also takes place at the MGM Grand Hotel because these films are made by MGM. And when pretty much Apollo enters the ring, with the patriotic entrance with James Brown performing Living in America with some showgirls, Belt then does start tamely, where Apollo does pretty much launch a few punches that are ineffective against Drago, and then Drago suddenly retaliates. And by the end of the first round, Rocky and Apollo's trainer Duke Evers pleads with him to stop the match, but Apollo doesn't want to do so. Unfortunately, this ends up being a huge problem because he ignores his manager's warnings, but he thinks he can still beat Drago, despite realizing how, like, Drago is wiping the floor with him. And right here, this does not just become a normal fight, like you've seen in the series. This actually then turns into one of the scariest scenes of the 80s of film. And one of the scariest death scenes of the 80s too, and the scariest scene of the Rocky series. A series that's kind of known for more drama. Like, this scene becomes straight up horror. Because you see how dangerous Drago really is when pretty much he pins like Apollo and like punches the shit out of him. And he's bleeding out of his mouth. And his wife is horrified, calling the fight to stop. And like Rocky looks with horror on his face and he just pummels him to death. And pretty much then Apollo then falls after Drago really does a savage blow to his face. And he's literally lying twitching on the ground. And the match gets called in Drago's favor, but he just really seems to display no care for what he's done. And it's pretty much what he says, if he dies, then he dies. Basically just like a cold, ruthless machine like that. And Apollo Creed then dies. Right in front of the crowd's faces. In front of his horrified wife, and in front of Rocky. Like, this was just a few years after he had lost his father figure and gained Apollo Creed's friendship. And then to lose him too. Which is just as horrifying to his face. Like, now, to be fair, Mickey's death was meant to be more of a sad emotional moment. Apollo Creed's death, well, it is a sad moment, but it's also meant to be also much more scary moments, but it's still a sad moment. And the scene's definitely much more relevant now after Carl Weathers had passed away last year. So may Carl Weathers rest in peace. And so, after the funeral, Rocky decides he has to go challenge Drago himself, and has to surrender his championship to do so. Drago's camp then agrees to his 50-round fight in Moscow on Christmas Day, where, guys, ironically, the film, some people actually call Rocky 4 a Christmas movie, because the finale takes place during Christmas. Yeah, and I found, I didn't even realize this too, that actually people actually called it a Christmas film. But who knew? So maybe next November or December of 2026, maybe I'll do a Christmas commentary on this for that. Well, but that's a long ways away. We're already January. We just passed last Christmas. So let's not talk about that right now. So it's originally meant to protect Drago from the threats of violence that he'd been receiving in the United States, well, which makes sense because this guy killed Apollo Creed. So it makes sense for him to receive death threats for it. And Rocky has to go to the Soviet Union without his wife because of her disapproval of the match. Because after Apollo Creed had died, it makes sense for her to kind of disapprove it. And he has to set up his training base or remote cabin in Siberia with only Duke and Polly to accompany him, all being watched by KGB agents. And, oh yeah, remember that robot pal I mentioned? Well, eventually, though, Polly off-screen did manage to get a type of girl voice. And pretty much like that, she really loves me, it's kind of still being a little freaked out by it, and when he pretty much comes back, what he says when he gets back is that when I get back, I'm going to make sure that thing's wires are tied. There, so, and now, pretty much there, Duke opens up to Rocky by pretty much telling him he raised Apollo, and his death felt like a father losing a son. And expressed faith in Rocky that he can emerge victorious, and you can see Rocky's face like he knows how that feels because he remembered watching Mickey die in front of his face back in Rocky 3, so he can see how it kind of feels the other way around. So now, in order to prepare for his match, though, Drago is using high-tech equipment from these trainers and doctors, monitoring every movement, and doses of steroids, while Rocky actually does another epic training montage where he does road work in deep snow over terrain and workouts utilizing antiquated farm equipment. And Adrian then has to change a hard 5 days before the fight to give Rocky her support, so she actually comes to give Rocky support. After originally deciding she didn't want to go, she then decides that she will go after all to support Rocky. And Rocky's still a great character in the film. He's a little less, we don't see much of his celebrity status as we did in Rocky 3, but he's not also on the street like the first two films. His character in the film is a mature heavyweight champion that's getting near the end who knows how to handle things now, after everything he's gone through the last 3 movies. Rocky does some best training in his film, where he's either climbing the mountains, where he's chopping the wood, where he's lifting the horse trailers, where he's doing lots of excruciating sit-ups. Rocky does not mess around training either, there's no lapses like he did in the other films. And Apollo dying in the film, now, Apollo dying does that, well, Apollo does die kind of after they became friends. It's done to add more to the story, you know? It's done for, killing Apollo in the film was done for a purpose, where it's kind of meant to kind of raise the stakes and kind of show the stakes Rocky's going to be going through. It's kind of meant to change up the story. It's not trying to rehash the story of the first 3 movies. It's meant trying to do something different. Or Rocky is now having to fight against Drago not for money, not for that weight title, but because this guy straight up murdered a friend he just gained, and now he's trying to get revenge for costing him his friend. So I like they do something a little more than just what they did in the last one. And I love the music selection, where it's burning hearts on fire, there's no easy way out, they're played at such perfect scenes. Vince DiCola actually does well for the new composer, and where it's the only one he really composed. His background music goes great with the film. Like, now, when it comes to the last one, is where Rocky 3, you knew Rocky was going to kind of win. Why it was one of the more weaker entries, and why it's kind of a little weaker than this film. Because you know how it's going to end. Rocky's going to win the fight. You do also kind of get the bit of the feeling that Rocky 4 would show him on top, but The stakes are a little more higher because he's not really dealing with an arrogant normal boxer like Clubber Lane really was. Clubber Lane was really just an arrogant asshole who was actually more of a properly trained fighter. Ivan Drago is actually something more than that. He's not just an arrogant fighter. He's actually a killing machine that's injected with stuff like steroids. And it can actually kill an opponent, even. It's got a more simpler story. It's still got a unique training sequence. And still one of the best parts of the movie. Some great music, some different fighting methods as well. Rocky IV really needed to do something a little more unique and powerful. And I'm kind of glad they decided to go a more different direction. Instead of just do the same thing all the time. Like we already saw Rocky's celebrity status in Rocky 3, and we know he's still a celebrity by this point, so we don't need to see much of it. We didn't really need to see much of it again. That was not what this film was trying to do. So the night of the match happens, and it's Christmas Day, and his son and his friends are watching it on TV at home, because obviously they can't come all the way out. Rocky then goes to some crowd that does not like him, while Draco gets introduced with cheers and a Patriot ceremony, where it contrasts to the match with Apollo. Draco immediately goes out to the offensive stuff and immediately gives Rocky a pounding in the first round. And to the end of the second round, he lands a right hook that, though Rocky does manage to land a right hook and cut Draco's eye. And Duke encourages Rocky by telling that this is now a match to show that Draco is only human and not the indestructible machine he always thought he was. Draco is commenting to his trainers that Rocky's a piece of iron, and so pretty much for the rest of the fight, the two boxers would spend the next other rounds trading blows, with Rocky really holding his ground despite all the efforts from Draco. And the 12th round then begins, and the Russian crowd then who hated Rocky at first, they have a change of heart, and they start cheering for Rocky. Then Cole berates Draco for not finishing the fight or seeing the crowd turn on him, but Draco rebels and throws him from the ring and addresses the Soviet leadership. And he exposes his true colors. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. He only fights for himself. Right there. And in the final round, then both fighters are now exhausted, and Rocky seizes his opening to unleash all these blows that overpowers Drago and avenges Apollo's death. So, he did what Apollo Creed couldn't do. He finished the job for Apollo Creed. He defeated Ivan Drago in the fight, and he won. Apollo Creed wasn't able to do it, but Rocky Balboa finished the job and avenged Apollo Creed's death. The final match is very well choreographed. It's intense, it's bloody, it's brutal, it's nail-biting. And the movie came out at a much later stage where Stallone really does develop all these perfect moves very well. The Match and Train really does it again for this Rocky movie like it always does. Stallone once again does a well-acted job. He doesn't overact like some people seem to think he does. I still think he does the performance well in the movie just as much as the last three movies. Stallone was made for this character. Honestly, it's very better when he directs this character. And Dolph Lundgren does this good job as the intimidating foreign boxer right there. So some may seem like he doesn't talk much, but he's not supposed to talk much. That's the point of his character. He's not a talker. Right there. He's a little more mute and rarely speaks. That actually makes him much more of a threat. Not every villain in the Rocky series needs to talk. It's a movie that really shows you how, even if you're in a different country, you can still win no matter what. Like, the train scene between Rocky and Ivan Drago is creative. You don't have to have more train equipment and devices to win. And Rocky sure doesn't. Rocky trains his real way. Right there. It doesn't, and sure, while maybe the death's not as strong as the first two, but it still takes all the stuff of the previous movies and still wraps them up tightly into an entertaining product. And no, for those who say, this film was just Rocky 3 again, it really wasn't. It was a lot more different than Rocky 3. It's a film only the 80s could produce, and it delivers very well. So now we get on with the finale. So after defeating Ivan Drago and winning the fight, Rocky gives his victory speech, and he acknowledges the crowd's initial hate for him, because he points out that it changed to respect during the fight, how it's like kind of more wider disdain between America and Russia, but he and the crowd really do come to respect and admire each other during the course of the fight. And Rocky then adds the crowd really sees two guys killing each other, but I guess it's better than 20 million. And Rocky then declares, if I can change and you can change, then everybody can change. And the general even stands and passionately applauds Rocky, and his aides also follow suit. And he ends his speech by wishing his son Rocky Jr. a Merry Christmas, because remember guys, this fight took place on Christmas Day. And he throws his arms in a chair in victory as the crowd applauds. Like, he even does comment, my son really should be in bed by now, but either way, while he does acknowledge his son should have immediately went to bed, but he still says Merry Christmas to his son on TV. And that's how Rocky 4 ends. And it's a good way to go out. And in the end, I guess it's a good way for this Christmas-themed Rocky movie to go out. A film that, I'm kind of glad I've reevaluated this, and now I can see why some people really consider this their favorite film in the series. Alright, so now do I have any bad qualities with Rocky 4? I guess if I did, the story I guess is a little predictable, because, well, there's a little more stakes in this fight. Rocky's still going to win, though. Not too much conflict in the movie, versus what some people would probably think. And, well, Paulie and Adrian aren't really in the movie too much. Once again, sure, the movie doesn't really make too much sense, and Dranko's punches should have punched Rocky's head right off, but remember guys, it's the 80s. Guys, this is a film. It's not really trying to be realistic. And I guess maybe maybe some people might not like the movie's too short. But I'm glad it's a little shorter. I don't think this film needed to be 2 hours long, like the first two did. Other than those, I now regard a film I was mixed on at first. I now regard this film as underrated. Some may be shocked I now think that, but it's honestly true. Because, like I said before, and I'll say it again, opinions on movies can change all the time. They always can. Either way, whether love or hate opinion, they always can change. And besides, after the Creed films, this movie got more respect. So in the end, to me, Rocky 4 is now worth the watch it by. If you're up for a more fun Rocky movie that has an 80s feel to it, or still in the mood for a good time. Anyways, that's it for my view of Rocky 4, and we're going to rank Rocky 4. Here's how I am now going to rank this movie. So overall, if you want to see a series go on a really 80s route, and see it have fun with itself, and actually still see some really more epic stuff as well, like the last three, then I would totally watch it by for both your collection and Christmas collection for sure, no doubt. And if already how I'm now going to rank Rocky 4, unlike how I used to, I am now going to give Rocky 4 from a 6.5 out of 10, I now give it an 8.5 out of 10. Alright, there we go guys. That wraps up reviewing you. So, time for you to go back on the shelf. And our next Rocky review... Right. Oh, well. Yeah, we have to do this one. Unfortunately, we're doing the whole series. We gotta do it. But regardless, though, at least we have this for the real Rocky 5. But we still do need to review this. It's part of the series. If we're doing a review series, we gotta do all the movies. We can't skip them. We can't skip any of them. That's how it works. But thankfully after that, we got a better Rocky 5 in 2006. The real one. But until then, guys, I want to know now in the comments down below what you guys think about Rocky 4, whether you're still divisive on this film, whether you still hate it, or whether you actually do loved it and always loved it, or consider it the best of the series like some people would. And until then, guys, that will be it for this review. Thank you all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.